America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Elaine Parker with the Job Creators Network. And joining us again today is Dennis Kneale, acclaimed journalist, former anchor at CNBC and Fox Business, and author of the new book, Oregoners. The state of Florida is making headlines with a bold proposal to dramatically reduce and potentially eliminate property taxes on primary residences. And your experience covering economic policy makes you the perfect person to talk about this with us. Plus, you're in Florida and you are following it as closely as the rest of us Floridians to find all the details. So thank you so much for coming back to the show, Dennis.
Great to see you, Elaine. And after 43 years in Brooklyn, New York, home of these highest tax rates in the nation, I moved down to Florida only in January. And just by doing that, on any income I'm lucky enough to earn, I got basically a 14% pay increase, right? Because you get rid of New York State and New York City's personal income taxes, right? But then you move down here and Governor DeSantis, do you remember when a year ago he started saying, hey, if you own your home and you pay off the bank and there's no mortgage, why is it that the government still wants you to pay property taxes on it? And if you don't, it could take the home from you. And then he started setting that out. And I just thought that's undoable. No government will ever do that. When I told my 88-year-old mother yesterday about this new proposal, she said, wait a minute, what's government get out of this? Why would they do this? And indeed, it will cost them maybe $4 billion in local taxes the first year this goes into effect in 2027.
Well, I have seen all kinds of comments and news organizations across the state. It's obviously nationally getting national headlines, but when you're looking at just the local TV stations, local papers, there has not been a single interview that I have read from any leader, any community leader, anybody, any mayor, any tax collector who has any kind words to say about this proposal. And then I am a total nerd and I love to read the comments from people who are reading the articles, and I can't find anybody who's against it.
Right.
Right.
The way this is lining up,
problem coming.
anyone who owns a home they live in Florida can benefit from this. It's rather extraordinary. I looked today, I was doing some research, who's opposing it. And of course, the League of Cities and the Association of County Governments are opposing it because they will take their hit, that ox will gore them because they'll have to, oh my gosh, do without revenue. The good thing is when government has to do without revenue, it does a better job because it has less money to spend. And I kept wondering, how can Florida possibly do this? How can they afford to do this? And it's because their economy is booming so much. They have this sales tax. It's 6%. They bring in $50 billion a year, roughly, in sales tax. That's half the budget straight on. And so now they can afford to fiddle with the property tax. But, interestingly, you point out the media interest elsewhere nationally. Will this trigger a proper, a kind of Prop 13 tax revolt like California triggered off in the 1980s in the Reagan era? My gosh, more states want to eliminate property tax.
I'm not sure if what'll happen in those terms, but I'd like to just get sort of an honest look at what's in this. It's not a bill.
Yes.
It's
a constitutional amendment that has to be. It's been approved by the legislature, so it goes to a vote in the November ballot. It has to win 60% of the voter approval. And can I go into some more detail? I have lots of good string if you want to hear it.
Yes.
Okay, so it all began when In 1992, Florida voters passed a new constitutional amendment effective 1995. And it said this, we've been assessing the property for taxes way below the market value. We're going to reset everything at 100%. Whatever your home could sell for today, that's where we're going to assess the property taxes on it. By golly, you'll have a tax increase. But from here on in, the amount that the county says your home went up in value, that assessment, it can go up no more than 3% a year, forevermore. Now cut to 30 years later, 2025. I just bought an apartment for X dollars, not a whole lot. It would have cost me $2 million in New York. Okay, it's assessed at 43% lower value than the real market value, right? So it's only worth 43% less. That means I pay tax on this lower number. And that's because of the homestead exemption. Now that tax-free section is at $50,000 now, but it's going to go up triple to $150,000 in 2027 under this proposal. That means 60% of homes, if they happen to be worth $150,000 or less, will pay no property tax at all. That is, except for school taxes, they'll still have to do that. And then in 2028, the 150 that was triple the 50, it goes to 250K. And then that's when you suddenly have exempted 60% of homes. It'll be about 35% of homes when that's that first 150K tax-free. So now it's 250. Oh my gosh. Well, when you have my assessed valuation of my home, when you get to 250 or 500 that he really wants to take it to, eventually, that'll be 92% of homes paying no property taxes. It's amazing because when is the last time, except for President Trump, we had any government anywhere trying to cut our taxes?
Well, so I wonder if you could give me some insight if you've got some skinny. He tried to DeSantis tried to doge all of these counties. And I say doge is, go in and audit them and see where we had waste, fraud, and abuse. And they fought him. They fought him tooth and nail in every city across. I know here in Orange County,
right,
mayor here fought him. And so is this sort of his revenge?
Gosh, you're reading it I'm going to be stealing this in future interviews on this proposal because you're reading it at such a chessboard level that my checker playing abilities didn't quite take in. It's not so much revenge, though. It's a bit of let's restrain the supply of dollars government has to spend to mess with stuff and to mess up stuff. And so, yeah, I love that link between the two. And isn't it sad that government officials would work so hard to oppose efforts to make sure there's less fraud and to make sure it's efficient spending? It's just awful that government's function is to perpetuate itself instead of to serve the people. It's really sad, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've read this 20 page amendment that will go on the ballot, and it stops at it says in beginning January 1st, we go to $150,000
from 50 tax-free. Yep. Of value. Yep.
Then in 28, we go to the 250. Now, I saw an interview with DeSantis, and he said this is not exactly what he wanted, because then he wanted it to go to 500 and ultimately eliminate. And the elimination is not there. It actually talks about a schedule that the state legislature must develop a schedule through the legislative process for elimination.
For getting to the 500K, that would eliminate taxes, all property taxes, non-school property taxes on 92% of homes. Yeah, but I think DeSantis is doing a great job here in that, okay, that's not part of the proposal that gets approved, but it's a start. And then he's doing a Trump thing. Trump showed us that just by putting new words into the universe, even though nothing's happened yet, you change reality, you change debate, you change what's happening. No one was talking about Greenland and rare earth metals there until Trump said, we ought to take it over. Suddenly, everyone's talking about it, and Trump wins a concession where they say, okay, we're not going to give China our rare earth stuff. I mean, that was out of nowhere. Well, DeSantis, by saying, and we've got to go to 500, even though it's not in that proposal, we're all talking about when it gets to 500.
Right. Right, exactly.
He's creating a possibility. And isn't that a lesson for all of us in our careers or our jobs or our personal lives? I mean, sometimes maybe you just got to say stuff.
Stretch goals. I call them stretch goals.
Ah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, you got to put them out there. Put them out there in the universe. So when you look at history, though, because I've done a little research on this one. In 1980, the exemption went to 1934, we had 5,000. In the 60s, it went to 10,000. In 1980, it went to 25,000. And not until 2008 did it go to 50,000.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. Did it go to the 50,000? So since 2008, would you like to know what the average home price was in 2008? It was
average home price? Hang on. I want to guess. Average home price in Florida in 2008. $76,000.
No. So in 1980, it was 73,000.
Okay, so I was very close. And did I say 2008? Damn, I meant 1980. Darn it.
But
okay.
the exemption then was the much lower exemption. It was
only 5. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they had increased it to the 25.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. By 2008, that is. Okay.
Yeah. In 1980, we got 25,000.
Right.
So it was shielding a big percentage of the home value.
Far bigger than now?
Yes.
Because the property values have gone up so vastly.
Yes.
Right. Isn't that interesting? Oh my gosh. That's quite interesting. And go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's the case right there is we haven't done anything since 2008. Average home.
Right. It wasn't inflation adjusted at all also. And now this new proposal will be so that it will be able to go up. Yeah, you're right. So, oh my gosh. So government benefited from that when the home prices on the market went up so vastly higher and their assessed value than that exact exemption. They were paying more. Right. Right. But I remember when I was a reporter down in Florida starting my career 40 years ago, assessments of the property values were all vastly below the market value. It was just something that government did to give you a gift. And then in 1992, it was very bold for voters to actually say, sure, let's raise all those assessments and increase our taxable value of our home to 100% and start there. But then that 3% limit on government was huge, and it's kicked in. And now there are all kinds of proposals in other states to do something on this score with property tax. And the local governments, and especially the local government worker unions, like the SEIU and the teachers unions, they're going to be against this. Never mind that for teachers unions, school taxes are not affected by this at all. They still get to take in all their revenue, but they're just afraid that it's, this is a creepy slope or whatever that is. Yeah,
there's enough groups and individuals out there trying to spread a lie that this is impacting schools. And again, another great chess move by the governor because he knew that it would never go anywhere if schools were included.
Right. Slippery slope. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So the argument that I have been sort of dealing with is you move into a new neighborhood, you buy a house, you raise the value of all your neighbors' homes, your home gets the one-time assessment, and suddenly you're not just the most expensive guy on the street, but you're paying, in some cases 2, 3, 4 times more for the same government services that your neighbors are.
This is because your home is assessed at a higher value than theirs? Because you just bought it?
Yeah, because you get the one-time assessment change.
Yeah, but although, look, I just bought my home for $383,000. It would have cost $2 million in New York because it's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, right? But it's the value on the market, even though I just paid that, the value that the government here locally puts on it is $219,000. That's 43% lower than what I just paid. Government's not good at instantly reassessing. And also it's not allowed to raise the value just because I paid that. It can't raise any more than 3% a year under that thing approved in 1992.
Yes, they can. When the house changes hands, so you have a better you have a a not as efficient tax assessor, because in Orange County, they're very efficient. When the house changes hands and sells, if the previous owner has been the original owner for 25 years and they've kept that low assessment,
Oh yeah, he has it.
When the house changes hands, they do a one-time reevaluation and they bring it up. And so they
that's because it's been so lagging because of that 3% cap on increases. And so they take that change of hands and then they kind of rev it up again. And then it starts up there at 3%. I see. It's just that I bought from a short-term owner who only had the apartment for a couple of years. So they already lost that. That's very interesting.
Yes.
Boy, your knowledge of this goes deep. I got to tell you, my friend, very deep. But we've got to remember
that from personal experience, Dennis.
Right. This is a blueprint for the country. This is a blueprint for other red states. And let's not forget something else, that these kinds of policies for red state versus blue state, the economist Stephen Moore just came out with a study showing that in the recent 10-year period, ended I think 2023 or something, red states, 31 of them, gained something like $2.2 trillion in cumulative income from newcomers coming in. Blue states lost over $1.9 trillion in cumulative income going out and flowing out. And of that $2.2 trillion gain, roughly, Florida alone was $1.2 trillion of that total in gained cumulative income, not annual, cumulative in that time. And here's how much better Florida is than, say, New York. Before I left New York a few months beforehand, I went to the Brooklyn driver license, had my noon appointment. Don't show up any earlier than 15 minutes ahead of time now. And they did not serve me until 3:30. I moved to Florida. I go to the driver license bureau. My appointment is noon. They saw me at 12:15. So much more efficient because it has to be, because you can't give government endless amounts of money.
Right.
We have a spending problem all over the country and in local jurisdictions, especially in blue states like Oregon, the home of my new book, Oregoners, How One State Chased Away Businesses and People.
Yes. And I wanted to ask you about your book, Oregoners, because it talks about how policy choices have contributed to Oregon's, is it Oregon or Oregon?
It's Oregon. And I had one poster kind of complain, the name Oregoners only works if you mispronounce the name of the state. Because it's Oregon, not Oregon. And I love that post.
Well, it looks at the economic and social challenges and how policy, really.
Yeah.
You're talking about the migration of people.
Oh my gosh.
Based on policy. We can look at all kinds of states that are doing that. California,
right.
Oregon, New York.
And here's the thing. New York is so big and vast. People have asked, why did you write this book on New York? Well, because the disaster hasn't struck yet. Even with Kami Mamdani in office, it will take years before New York really kind of reels and writhes from the impact. Oregon is so small, 4.2 million population. That's less than half of New York City. Over 2 million in the Portland metro area. 65% of the media market is the Portland area. So that the outcomes of these well-meaning, stupidly liberal policies show up in sharper relief and they show up sooner. And Oregon is reeling. It is losing literally thousands of residents, taxpayers, rich people, businesses. Intel is expanding elsewhere. A timber company in Oregon just spent $250 million to acquire timber in North Carolina because they're better able to harvest there than they are in Oregon because of green TIFA restrictions. The homeless industrial complex in Portland County, 3-county area, spends $720 million a year on 18,000 people. And yet homelessness went up 64% in that area in 2 years. The outcomes are awful. And the Democrat voters just keep voting in the supermajority over and over again. But for the first time, even they are rebelling. I mean, a new poll by the Oregonian shows that 40% of people in Portland say they want to leave within 5 years. A poll before that in the fall showed 67% of registered voters in Oregon said, we're on the seriously wrong track. And now we just had the primary in which 83% of voters in Oregon voted against the governor's emergency tax increase for the transportation department unions. And they said no and rejected it. It's an astounding outcome for a supposedly blue state. And now we know that the Democrat governor elected in 2022, Tina Kotek, we know that even in the Portland area where she represented them in the state legislature for 15 years, she has her lowest ever approval rating. I mean, way down there in the 30s, and she's in trouble. And now you have a rematch of the 2022 runoff between the general election with this Christine Drazen. I've met her 3 times. She's this petite, feisty thing. And my gosh, is Oregon about to elect its first Republican governor since 1982? Maybe.
Well, we have politicians like this mayor out there that is driving out the businesses, the high income earners, as you say, the taxpayers. I mean, what's left? And
yeah,
what kind of outreach does the mayor do in Oregon to in Portland to engage with businesses and understand the challenges that they're facing in terms of taxes and regulations and the anti-business sentiment?
Well, here's the thing, Elaine. What is every politician who's in trouble with a problem they cannot fix? What does every politician do? You name a blue ribbon commission to study the matter, by golly. And so she named a prosperity council, business people, union people. Although what industry has ever thrived because of union labor in the last 30 years? I can't name one. And this Prosperity Council is going to come out with a report soon. And before it's even out, already everyone's organizing against it, because one of the first things they say is cut taxes. My God, you have the second highest taxes in the entire country after only New York. And yet the service you get for those high taxes is terrible. People in Portland have to wait 19 minutes for the cops to respond to a violent 911 call. If your car gets stolen, you'll have to go to the website. We're not even going to send a cop out to you. I mean, just the services, education, they spend almost $20,000 a year per student. That's about 20% more than the national average, I think it is. Their students rank 48th and 46th, fourth graders in math and reading, or reading and math. I mean, my gosh. And yet, so you're not getting what you pay for. The unions are getting it, though. But finally, maybe people are fighting back. But this is a canary in the coal mine, Oregon is, for all blue states. You guys can't keep adopting these new policies that make you feel good about yourselves when they have stupid outcomes. I'm sorry to filibuster. I got one more if I can give it to you, Elaine.
Absolutely.
One more, but okay. Green TIFA regulations. What really just devastated the timber industry there, our country went from a net exporter of timber because Oregon and the Pac Northwest were so prodigious to a net importer from Brazil and elsewhere because of those regulations that went into place to protect the spotted owl. Okay. I mean, it's just crazy. And meanwhile, it turns out that wildfires or bugs are now killing 2 out of every 3 trees in Oregon. Okay, so what was all the protection for? Wildfires that are fueled in part by dead logs that you're not allowed to remove from the forests because of these green TIFA regulations. Oh, and then you look at the idea of reducing carbon, because Oregon is forcing its electricity utilities to be 80% off carbon by only 5 years from now and 100% by 2040. Well, my gosh, it turns out in California, carbon reduction, reduce it, carbon's bad. They were able to reduce 65 million metric tons of carbon in 18 years. And that sounds like a lot. But it turns out we now know that in 2022, in the wildfire season in California, it released carbon emissions totaling 127 million metric tons, all but wiping out, more than doubling the 65 million tons saved in 18 years. And then 2 years later, another wild season of wildfires doubled those savings and those emissions again. And when we think suddenly how stupid it was to think that we can control nature, and when we have volcanoes and geysers and wildfires putting out more than double the savings of carbon. What are we doing for it at all? Especially in China alone is turning out 33% of carbon with no restrictions at all. How stupid all of it was, and shame on every environmental activist who is in favor of it.
Well, I mean, I think the industry of carbon credits and all of that, it's a grift. I mean, that's what it is.
Yes.
There's a few people who have figured out how to make a lot of money on it.
Yes, created only by government. It's
Yes.
purely by government.
Yeah. And it doesn't really do anything to help the environment. And
well, in Oregon, they have grants. Hey, let's give 40 black owners of black businesses in Portland half the price of acquiring an EV with our grant we're getting from the city, from the Clean Energy Fund, because it'll help reduce carbon emissions when we let these 40 guys buy Teslas at half price. Give me a break. It won't reduce anything.
when you look at the trajectory of a state like Florida and how what we're seeing in terms of, we have no debt. I mean, the revenues coming into the state alone from people moving here and businesses coming here. And then you compare it to a state like Portland, like Oregon.
Yeah.
And run by mayors like in Portland. I mean, what are your sort of like overarching lessons that policymakers should take from that?
I visited Oregon a few times, and I interviewed these business owners, politicians, operatives, advisors, and I was, when you go out reporting on this, I learned this at the Wall Street Journal a few decades ago. You'd be out not sure what your story was, and you're working on the page one story. But when you started suddenly seeing certain things come up among utterly unrelated sources, the same three themes, you realized you found your story. And in Oregon, I was surprised how many people said to me, Elaine, right now we're like an addict. It's just that we haven't hit bottom yet. And we're going to have to do that before people wake up and realize and have a backlash against all that we've been doing for the last 20 or 30 years. 40% of the voters in that state are red, are Republican. Donald Trump in 2024 got more votes in that state, which he lost, than Tina Kotek, the Democrat governor, won in 2022. It's just that they're kind of gerrymandered out, just like everywhere else.
Yeah.
Democrat or Republican, yeah. The Republicans do it too.
I was surprised when as we've been talking about this redistricting on a national basis, when I looked at some of these states on how many voters, in Oregon, in Massachusetts, in states like that, there is 40-something percent registered Republicans in these states, and they have no representation at all.
Yeah, and here's the thing that gets me, though, Elaine. How did the Republican Party let that happen? Where the hell were they? Why are they so willing to play number two? And it's very weak, and it's because it really is the uniparty in Washington, and they really are all feeding at the same trough. I'm happy to be number two because at least I'm second in line instead of last.
They have let it happen. They absolutely have let it happen. And they will still stand there and point fingers now that the Republicans are doing it. And really, I mean, they wrote the rule book. They wrote the entire game plan, and Republicans are just doing it now.
Look at the literally multi-billion-dollar fraud going on every year. We now know Minneapolis alone, Minnesota's $9 billion a year, and it's a small population state. Imagine what it must be everywhere else. Oh my gosh! And it's just been going on forever, and no one's stopping it. And some of that money is round tripping right back into the campaigns of the people who are approving it. I mean, it's just all a huge racket, far more than we ever knew. It probably is the biggest part of the annual deficit, that annual overspending versus the revenue our government takes in. It is the biggest part. The Centers for Medicaid and Medicare alone with Social Security, they say the fraud in those three programs, I think, is $500 billion a year. That's what they admit to. But now all of this other stuff, it's just remarkable. And the thing is, it's mostly Democrats. These guys are amazing shysters and scammers, and they've been reaping billions. And Republicans aren't even smart enough to get in on the grift for the most part. I imagine there's some of that out there, but but not much. These guys, the Republicans, seem like amateurs by comparison. The Democrats have always been outflanking them with, and in part it's because they have bald-faced impunity, because the media, lapdogs that used to be watchdogs, won't do anything to call them out on it.
Yeah, I mean, they really do play checkers to the Democrats' chess. I mean, they're
Right.
they're
Yeah.
running circles around them in a lot of ways in terms of strategy and how to
Right.
win elections, and even the states that have the ballot harvesting. I mean, California has been at that game for a long, long time,
Oh,
and
God.
they know how to harvest ballots.
I'm stunned at the raw, brazen, bald-faced cheating that seemed possibly to be going on in the LA mayor's race and in the governor's race. I mean, this number 3 candidate who in the mayor's race in LA, who was at 5%, who wasn't even allowed to join the debate on television because you don't have enough support. In the late night, few days later, counting, suddenly she hurtles past the Spencer Pratt. Give me a break. Just spit in my face and tell me it's raining. I cannot believe it's happening. And again, where are the Republicans? Where's Congress?
It's not unbelievable that a Republican, this is a nonpartisan race, but let's be real. He has admitted that he's a registered Republican. It's not unbelievable that a Republican would have trouble winning or even being second place in a mayoral race in a county. What's hard to understand statistically is what you just pointed out, and that's that she was so far behind. And then when the votes came in and they essentially called it for Bass and Pratt, when the mail-in votes started coming in, Bass leveled off. She wasn't increasing. The votes weren't coming in for her. They were coming in for the third party candidate, Nithya Raman is her name.
Yeah.
And Bass stayed steady. So she wasn't benefiting. How is it even statistically possible that the mail-in votes were all going, not all, but most of them going for Nithya Raman and not for Karen
And not to
Bass?
the number 1 vote getter in the group. Yeah,
Yes.
that's a great question, a great point. And I can't believe that the Democrats, even themselves, aren't more concerned about this. And it's because they don't seem to worry about that stuff at all. They almost seem to invite it.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like I said, I didn't think if he had won second place, which I think he probably did, but if he was the second place and went to the runoff, where do you think those 17 or 18% that she had, Nithya Raman had initially would have gone? They would have gone to Karen Bass.
Oh, sure.
So I don't think that he was ever going to win, but I do think—
You don't think maybe liberal voters are just fed up? I mean, you can see in LA the impact of their policies. I mean, the chance of a backlash, I want to see every ballot examined. I think one problem, this mail-in ballot thing, Oregon for years has been 100% mail-in ballots. And so that's how a lot of people there think they maintain their supermajority, because it's cheap. It's rigged. And I don't know how we ever got to the point of being able to justify 100% mail-in. How lazy do you have to be? Here's how lazy. The biggest party, so to speak, in Oregon is the, unaffiliated, because they're at their driver license getting it and they don't even pick a party. So they get going to this unaffiliated thing, although most of them are probably liberal too. It's just craziness. And I remember what they did in 2020 when Trump lost. Are you an election denier? How dare you undermine democracy by questioning the election process? And then, of course, Trump wins in 2024, and leading Democrats are saying the election wasn't a fair election, and they're, undermining democracy themselves. But this idea that this word denier, like Holocaust denier, which is the same as calling someone a Jew hater. I mean, that's what they tried to do to bringing up debate about the vote. But I sure hope at the least that this ridiculous outcome in LA leads to a bigger debate about whether our elections really are secure. It doesn't have to be widespread fraud, right, Elaine? It just has to be a little bit of fraud in the right places.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And what we did see in 2020 is we saw the way that California does elections spread across the country for that election.
Good point.
And if it's nothing else, whether you can prove that there was fraud in, to make a difference, if there's ever a point where there's a doubt in the election system, I think our elected officials should absolutely take that seriously.
Yes.
And that's the whole point. Do we have to prove there's fraud? I don't think so. Do we have to prove there's not fraud? I don't think so. But if there's doubt in the system because we have ballot harvesting happening at such a wide level, or all mail-in ballots, it seems ripe for problems. And
so how about we investigate and look at that? Instead of every Democrat coming out against Trump sending a prosecutor, a federal DA and their district attorney, with a U.S. attorney, to check it out. What's wrong with checking just to make sure? Why are you so offended by anyone looking? It's like when they taped all of the windows so that the observers couldn't see what they were doing. Anybody who's hiding something for the public may not be doing all good things. And I just hope that we can do something about it for a change and just sitting back.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do think it's impossible that Karen Bass was not benefiting from the mail-in vote. But
right. I hadn't thought of that angle too. Yeah. Number one vote getter suddenly
she
getting
didn't increase,
no gains at all.
She didn't increase very much. And
that's a cheat. That's got to be a cheat. I'm sorry.
I took statistics. I believe that it's statistically impossible for that to have occurred.
Yeah. See, now I would like to see a serious study of that. I would like to see a media outlet, interview a statistician, some famous prize-winning mathematician, statistician, to talk about that. Because the same thing was true in 2020 with the 81 million votes for Biden. Give me a break. Liar, liar, pants on fire. My gosh.
Like I said, if there's a doubt, I don't think we have to prove either way. But if you are doing a system is in place that causes doubt, then we need to have in-person.
Then that's worth at least a second look. Yeah. I've been saving in a file, a bookmark on my X account under election questions. I didn't want some ex-censor to see me saying denying the election and deciding to censor me. So election questions. And the amount of data coming in on so many different places is astounding. And a lot of the stuff that we worried about in 2020, they're now saying, actually, we've got this huge 250,000 ballots that were never officially entered or something. But all these things are now coming out showing that you were right to have questions. You weren't un-American to question that outcome. We were right to have questions.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and if we do, they should be answered. I mean, they should be answered, not just shut down. And look, there were a lot of problems that year because of COVID. Things were not being done the way we normally do them. And now at least that sort of cancer of how you do elections is more in just California.
Exposed.
Well, it's exposed, but at least it's more isolated than it was. Yeah, we do need to look at our elections and make sure they are secure and make sure the American people feel comfortable with them.
Right. So. More of the American people also should vote. I mean, voters get what they deserve. And that's what's happened in Oregon. That's what's happened in California and other blue states. And that's what's happened in Florida, a red state. They did the right vote. And I think Democrats need to wise up.
That's how we know the vote that evening. Like we can count our votes because you have to go in person and vote. I mean, you have to get permission to have an absentee ballot.
Yeah. Well, I read somewhere that India is in national elections is able to count 650 million votes in a day. And old California there still counting. And now I'm seeing reports on X where people say, hey, they didn't get my ballot yet. They haven't counted it. So how can you declare Pratt the loser if you really haven't even finished counting all those ballots? And what the heck has taken so long? It's just so, don't like seeing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the name of your book is Oregoners. Tell everyone where they can get your book and find out more about you.
You know, my earlier book a year ago, The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk, the great HarperCollins, one of the biggest publishers in the world, did a wonderful job. Took, 6-9 months to get that puppy out the door. I was turned down by a few publishers. I went straight to Amazon. Up in 2 weeks, ripped from the day's headlines. It's there on Amazon or also OregonersBook.com. And please post a friendly review, because I got a couple of haters on the Amazon review board. I could use some balance.
All right. We will definitely do that. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about your book, Oregoners. I appreciate you talking to us about the property tax debate that is happening here in Florida, that we are all just riveted and watching with bated breath on what happens. And thank you all for taking the time to join in to Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. Main Street Matters is part of the Salem Podcast Network. New episodes debut every Wednesday and Friday. You can subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast from, and we'll be back soon with another episode.